Now we're in the stage of inserting content and styling content for each of our pages. And we're going to start with the index page. So I have my Dreamweaver uh, piece open with my portfolio year 2 selected. And in my files panel here, I'm just going to double click and open my index.html. We're going to break this up into 3 different sections on our index page. So to make our tutorial shorter and just to kind of go through each section individually on our home page, on our index page. The first piece that we're going to insert is going to be the personal legend that you guys developed and wrote about earlier. Now this content may or may not be the same from one year to the next, but essentially the formatting and how you place it into your portfolio should stay the same. If you remember right, we left off in our index page. We did add a section for our content to go into. So right here where I'm highlighting in my code, it shows div class content main wrap top, and then nested inside of that is a div class content main contain. So we're going to start by putting our content inside of that div container. I'm going to do something a little bit differently this time. Normally we start with styling some content first, but what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to insert the content first and then go back and style it. So I'm going to find my cursor and find that line where I'm on line 45 on my code, and it should say div class content main contain. So I want to go inside of that container, so I place my cursor right after the opening tag there. I'm going to hit the enter return key one time and then tab inside. I have an image that I want to insert into this area, and this image that I have is a fairly large image, and it spans not the entire width of our design, but it's pretty close. Now you might have a different image. You might have my image is a landscape based image, and you might have a portrait style image. So your setup for this might be slightly different than mine, and but I believe you should be able to make this work even if you have a different type of setup, and I'll show you what I mean in just a sec. So I'm going to insert my image, but before I insert my image, I want to actually insert a div tag. And I'm not going to create an ID or a class for this div tag. I'm just going to insert a div tag by typing in the left caret here and typing in div, and instead of an ID or a class that we've normally been doing in our tutorial, I'm just going to align this div tag to the center. And this will, whatever I put inside of here, my image is what I'm going to put inside here, it's going to center my image for me. Now if you want to say right align your image, then this is how you would do it as well. Instead of saying div align center, you would say div align right or div align left. Okay? Now I'm centering mine, so I'm going to stick with that. I closed my div tag out here, and then I now have an empty line here on line 47 to insert my image. So I'm going to tab inside of that to indicate that this image is nested within this div that doesn't have a name or anything, and type in a left caret img src for source, and then select enter return as my browse box comes open. And next I need to browse for that image. So I'm going to select my portfolio there, images, and this one is called, mine is called responsive web design. So this is kind of based on the design that I have for my header. And then I need to make sure I put in an alt tag or an alt piece in there for my blind audience. So we're going to talk, and also for search engines, we're going to call this one column design. Let's do one column web design. Let's make that a little more detailed. And then I end that with a forward slash and then a right caret. And then after this image comes my personal legend text. So I'm going to place my cursor right after that closing div tag and of the div align center there. So on mine it's line 48, and then I'm going to hit the enter return key, and I'm going to keep it on the same level with this div tag that I inserted, not with the other div tags or with the image, because I want to show that this text is inside of this container right here. Okay, so I keep those on the same level to make it easier to see that later on if I ever need to go back and make some changes to it. We're going to start this off with an H1 tag because I want to give my personal legend a title. I hope you came up with a really cool title for yours. I'm just going to say the personal legend of ... Okay, and then I'm going to hit the enter return key here and type in paragraph tag and left paragraph tag or left caret and then /, and I want to enter in some text. Now you hopefully will have this written out already, but I have basically just some filler text, what's called lorem ipsum. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save real quick to make sure that nothing adversely happens while I'm changing over to a different program. So I'm going to Control Tab, or if you're in your case you might do a Windows tab or Command tab. I'm going to switch over to my Word document that I have open or minimized down here. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see a bunch of text that looks like it's in Latin, and it is in Latin. I've done a word count on this, and my word count for the requirements for this piece of the personal legend or whatever intro piece that we have you do is about 3 paragraphs long here. So I'm just going to highlight all 3 paragraphs here, the first 3, and I'm going to Command C or Control C that text, and then minimize that and come back over to my Dreamweaver. I'm going to start with just go ahead and finding my opening and closing paragraph tag here, but what's going to happen is it's going to copy and paste all 3 paragraphs into one paragraph tag. So I'm going to need to break that up in just a sec. So I'm going to hit Control or Command V to paste that in there. So you see my opening paragraph tag here is up above, and then there's my closing paragraph tag right there, but I clearly have 3 paragraphs. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this closing paragraph tag and move it to that first end, or the end of that first paragraph. And then I'm going to find the next or the start of the second paragraph and then tab in a couple times to match up with the other paragraph. And then I'll begin typing in the left caret P and then right caret, and then find the end of that paragraph, left caret /. So that's paragraph number 2, and then locate the third paragraph, tab that over twice, left caret P, right caret, and then last but not least find that closing paragraph or the end of that paragraph. Looks like I left off a period accidentally, so I'll type that in, left caret /, so that it ends that paragraph out. I ended up with an extra blank line on line 53, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that line out so I don't have any extra spaces there. And then we need to move over to styling our paragraph here. So I'm going to click on my cascading style sheet. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S or Command S to save it, and then click on the Portfolio Main CSS style sheet, and then scroll down, and what I'm looking for is the main content styles section. So I'm going to stop right about there, and right after where it says content main contain, I'm going to place my cursor right at the end of that closing curly brace and then hit the enter return key a couple times so I'm on line 93. We need to start this off with, we're going to style, we have 2 elements to style. That's the heading 1 tag, and then the P tag within that content main container. So we need to start off with that same class of content main, and you'll notice that even in my code hint in my CSS it pops up. So I'm going to go ahead and select that just in case I accidentally misspell it or forget something, so that way I know that it's going to get applied. If I misspell this or forget a letter or forget a hyphen or something, if I don't do it exactly right, it will not apply the styling to my H1 tag. So I need to hit the space bar here and then type in H1, and then open up a curly brace, enter return key, and then we're going to just do 2 things to this. We're going to style the margin. We're going to adjust the margin so that it pushes down a little bit. And that's all we're really going to do in terms of the margin on that, we're not going to mess with any other values on the top or the left or the right. And then we're going to adjust the font size to 1.7 EM. You may use pixels if you'd like and play around with the size however you see fit. That's just the value that I'm going to use. You can even change the color. I'm just going to stick with black. My next piece to target is going to be the paragraph tag within that container. So I start off again with the class content main contain, because I'm in the same container that I was just previously, and I'm going to target the P element or the P tag, and then open up, ignore that A, open up a curly brace, hit the enter return key, and again we're going to do some of the same margin treatment here. 15 pixels on the top, 0, 0, 0, all the way around on the other sides. And then the next thing we're going to adjust is the line height of each of our paragraph lines. So as I type in line, you're going to see the line height come up in the code hint, and hit enter return to complete that statement out. And then we're going to do a 1.5 EM value here so that the line height is 1.5 times the height of our pixel size or our text size, and then enter return, and then write curly brace. So that's all I really need to do for my text and my image. Before I close this tutorial out though, we better take a look at it to make sure everything went as planned. So I'm going to come down here to my preview for browser, preview in Firefox, and wait for that to open up. Oops, let's close that. I think it went into the next one. There we go. So my image is spaced down just a tad bit, and that should be set from my the position that I put my container in. And you'll notice that as you scroll down, your header should get a drop shadow. It should create a drop shadow as it scrolls down here. If for some reason you feel like this is too much of a gap up here, where you're going to adjust that, if we go back to Dreamweaver here, is up in our content main wrap top here. Right now we have this set as margin 215 pixels. I'm not sure if you look at mine, I think this is more than 15 pixels. And what could be happening here is my image could have a little bit of extra space here at the top. The image itself and the size of it might have an extra space in there, so you just might double check your image to make sure that you've cropped it so that it fits exact to your image. I'm going to go ahead and leave it just this way for now, and then maybe troubleshoot it in a little bit later in another piece. If you scroll down here, you're going to see I have my text, the personal, I found a spelling mistake, I better go back and fix that. And then I have my paragraphs that follow this. One of the things that I want to briefly touch on is when you set up or create a home page, one of the things that I really want you to think about is your narrative, the narrative of your website, the narrative of your website. What is it that you are trying to communicate with your portfolio? I think in this case, I'm hoping that your personal legend communicates what you hope to accomplish or achieve in your life. And I think that's a good way to start a portfolio, is you're kind of introducing yourself to the world and what you kind of believe in and where you want to go with that belief. And that's kind of the idea here of the whole portfolio. So in terms of the personal legend or whatever piece of writing we have you do right here on your homepage, we want you to create that narrative of what do you want your users to read about you? What do you want your readers to think and know about you right off the bat? Okay, extremely important. I'm going to toggle back over to Dreamweaver here and go back into my source code and show you something. Show you one thing that you probably should do if you haven't already done it in a Word document. But Dreamweaver gives you the ability to spell check. So if you go up to commands and check spelling, you'll get a spell check piece here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just close this because all of my text is in Latin, and spell check it would take 20 minutes just to go through all the words in my piece. But I do know that I need to fix that personal legend piece at the top there, and and fix that. Alright, so in the next tutorial, we are going to focus on the next section of the index page, which is your SMART goals section.